So Giannis said that he is not going to commit to re-signing with the Bucks this offseason unless everyone's on the same page. So what does this actually mean? So he's only under contract for one more season, meaning this year is his last guaranteed season under contract. At the end of the summer, at the end of next summer, he does have the option to opt out of his contract. However, he's still got one more year on contract that's set to actually pay him $51.9, almost $52 million a year that season. So it is kind of iffy whether or not he's actually going to opt out or not. That's a lot of money. Who knows? I don't know if I would actually be opting out of $52 million. But then again, he's already in a position to have made a lot of money and make even more money in the future. So sure, it does depend. He has said that winning the title is the most important thing to him. He's always said that technically. Even those years, those seasons where he was winning MVP the second time, the Defensive Player of the Year in the same year that he won MVP. No matter what, he's always maintained that winning the title was the most important thing. When you look at the Bucks though, you got his core, his veteran core. Middleton, he was 32 years old. Drew Holiday, 33 years old. Brook Lopez, he's 35 years old. Bobby Portis is 28. Grayson Allen is 27. This is basically the starting lineup. Whole bunch of really old, injury-prone Middleton. Brook Lopez is a freaking 35. And so in the Eastern Conference, the Bucks do have one of the more older cores. So is this really what Giannis's future is going to be? He's only about 28 now. So is this really what his future is going to be? That's what depends. So let's talk about some of the teams that they say are rumored to be interested in going after him next summer if he does opt out. The teams that are being mentioned so far right now, OKC, I clearly see why. The Spurs, I'm going to talk about the Spurs. And of course, a dark horse, the Raptors. So, however, every single team should be interested. It's freaking Giannis, freaking Antetokounmpo. So, obviously, every team should be trying their best to go after him in free agency. Let's talk about the Spurs. So, Spurs, they got all their picks. They got a really young team. So, they got a bunch of young players, all their picks. Their young players do have upside. I'm not going to say that, but they're kind of average. I mean, sure, you get the opportunity to team up with Wemby, a potential, hopefully, a top 5 player of all time. The physical gifts, the shooting, the touch, the fluidity of his movements. He could be the greatest player in history, just by numbers. But what I'm predicting is Wemby's going to be some sort of elite defensive player right from the get-go. In his rookie season, there's a chance he could be on the all-defensive team. Maybe the third team, second team, you never know. But this dude could be a one-man defensive wrecking crew. So that's definitely possible. He's literally 7'6". The part that he still has to develop, or that's kind of that we do have to kind of see, we can't just assume he's going to be great at, is the offense. He's going to have to kind of develop into his full offensive form. One thing that is definitely there, Greg Popovich, he did re-sign for another 5 years. So that's definitely a positive asset that the Spurs have. 5 more years of an elite championship level coach. You also have pretty much probably his entire career with Wemby. So that's actually a great little duo to team up with for Giannis. However, one great player, again, Wemby has not even played a single NBA game. So let's not get ahead of ourselves here. But one potentially great player, one elite championship coach, does not make a championship contending team. And that's what Giannis wants to do. He wants to contend for a championship now. He's in his prime. This is what he wants to do now. He's not willing to wait through a rebuild. He needs to get on a team on contend for championships right now. So they got all their picks. Sure, they got a whole bunch of young players. Jeremy Sohan, got a whole bunch of good, average young players. They could definitely move all those pieces, get some rotation players, some role players, and have Giannis and Wemby as your core, as your main big two. That just sounds elite defensively, but again, Wemby's got to prove that he can hold up in the NBA on the offense and of course on defense. This dude is a freaking twig, so he's got a lot to prove before I start putting him up in the top 5 player, top 10 player of all time. He's got to prove it. Let's move on to OKC. So OKC, technically, if I was to choose which team has a decent chance at going after Giannis, enticing Giannis to believe that this is a championship contending core right now that he can join, it's probably OKC. Over the next 7 seasons, they have 35 draft picks, first and second round picks. That's a whole lot of assets you can trade for role players. So they have that where they are able to have assets that they can trade off to build a collection of bench players and role players. SGA, Shea, this dude might actually be an MVP candidate on his own. Just without Giannis, with Giannis, no matter what, this dude might be an MVP caliber player on his own. You've seen what he did last season, over 30 points per game. You're seeing what he's doing in the summer in the World Cup. You're seeing that he qualified Team Canada to the World Cup by being a MVP championship caliber player on his own. And he's a two-way player, and he's just about to turn 26. So SGA is just about to enter his prime. Giannis is already in his prime. He's already a championship MVP level player. SGA could become an MVP level player too. This might be the team up that is actually going to meet Giannis's timeline. Also, OKC has a nice little collection of young players. You know, they got Chet. Again, Chet's got to prove it. He's also a twig, so he's got to prove it. They got Jalen Williams. They got Giddey. They got Lou Dort. They have a good collection of young core players. This season, they didn't actually make the playoffs. They did make the play-in, and they lost, so they could potentially be a future playoff team next season. I actually think that looking at the West, they might actually be in the playoffs next season easily, just with the fact of adding Chet to their rotation, having him available for most of the season, SGA taking his level up even more, being more consistent, Josh Giddey improving, Jalen Dub improving, and they also have the draft picks they can use to bring in role players to build that bench for a championship contending team. Is that possible? Who knows? But this might actually be a team that meets the criteria of having a MVP high level all NBA type of player, a sidekick like Shea, young core, Chet, Giddey, and you bring in Giannis, and you bring in a whole bunch of role players with your draft picks and your young players, and this meets your timeline. For most of Giannis's prime, this core would be developing and still young, still on good contracts. So that's pretty interesting. The last team I want to talk about, Toronto, of course. So Toronto, except for next offseason in 2024 and their second round pick in 2025, they've got all their remaining picks. They've also got a solid core. Say, for example, if Giannis was to opt out and enter free agency next summer, joining Siakam, OG, Scotty Barnes, Jakob Poeltl, this is a elite two-way defensive. On defense, this would be even better than OKC, even better than Wemby and Giannis. Siakam, OG, Scotty, Jakob, and Giannis. Ain't nobody getting to the rim, ain't nobody getting past the perimeter. You gotta beat them with threes. This core would have an incredible defensive upside. Of course, this team also has a lot of playoff experience already, something that OKC definitely does not have. Shea does not have. He's only been in playoff situations where he's not actually required to do much. Chris Paul was there, so he was a baby then. He was in the playoffs when Clippers were in the playoffs, again in his rookie season, so again, he was a baby then. Siakam, he's a solid All-NBA championship caliber player. He's won a championship as the number 2 player, as the duo next to Kawhi. OG is a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. He's also got offensive upside, and I'm pretty excited to see what he can do with more opportunity now that VanVleet's gone. Scotty, he's probably got the highest ceiling of the entire team right now. He's a great playmaker, defender, rebounder, pushing in transition, and he's got elite offensive upside too. Imagine he develops that jump shot. Even without the jump shot, he's still got an incredible ceiling. And of course, the one thing that Toronto has to its advantage over the other teams, over OKC, over the Spurs, they got the personal connection between Masai Ujiri and Giannis. Masai Ujiri was the guy that facilitated Giannis's family to get the visa to come over to the US. So he's got that personal touch. He's got that personal connection. Last time that Giannis entered free agency, he just re-signed with the Bucks mainly because of the fact that Giannis wanted to re-sign. He wanted to stay loyal because he wanted to win a championship in Milwaukee. guess what? He did that. He re-signed. He won that championship. Now he sees that his window, his opportunity to actually build that in Milwaukee again is probably not that possible. And if that's the case, he needs to go and look out for himself. So Giannis having the choice of where to sign and enter free agency, that actually might work in Toronto's favor. Now, ultimately though, I don't actually think that Giannis is planning on leaving. I personally think that he just made this statement that he's not going to re-sign unless everyone in Milwaukee, in the organization, is on the same page, that they're planning on developing this team into another championship contender. Really, I just think he made the statement to kind of force the Bucks front office to assume that bad guy role, and so that they can go ahead and do certain moves like trade Middleton, trade Drew Holiday, rehab the roster, rebuild that roster so that he has a championship contending roster next to him. Because he's learned from two separate situations. One, he learned from the LeBron situation where he doesn't want to be known as the GM. He doesn't want to be known as the bad guy that's forcing his front office to make trades and trading away his teammates. He doesn't want to assume that role. But also, he did learn from the Damian Lillard situation where saying I'm loyal to this team and I'm loyal to the city and trusting the front office to do their part and build that championship team around them is probably just going to be wasting years and years of your career in a city and for a team that never really does their part. You just blindly give them your trust for and with nothing to show for it. Sure, he's got one title to show for it, sure, but I don't really think we're going to ever see another player again follow that loyalty game plan. Like, I don't think that's going to be a thing again. So even though I don't think he wants to leave, I don't think that's his plan right now, a little message to the Bucks front office to do their part, make the necessary moves. But Giannis definitely wants it to be clear, he's not about to stay and hope and pray that the front office and the Bucks organization does the right thing, does their part, goes out of their way to build a roster around him. He's putting them to the fire. You got 1 year. Within this next year, you better be making moves, making some trades, doing whatever you have to do to get Giannis a team right now, as soon as possible. Because if next summer, if they go out again as a number 1 seed, losing to an 8 seed, like they did embarrassingly this season, if the same thing happens again, he's out. He's opting out. He doesn't need that extra $51.9 million. He's going to be out. He can go somewhere where he can go and contend. Guess what? There's teams that are going to be lining up to throw him the bag, let him know we built you this team. You just got to sign and let's make a run right now. And you never know. OKC looks like a great option. Toronto looks like an amazing option too. So let's see what happens. It's going to be fun to see. I hope Giannis does leave. I do like to see what he would look like with a different set of players. He's been with Middleton. He's been in Milwaukee for so long. They got a new coach, so who knows what Adrian Griffin's going to be able to do with this roster. But he better also, he's under the fire too now. He better get the job done, because if not, Giannis is out.